I'm really excited to be here tonight, to have the opportunity to address the people in this room. First and foremost, I'm excited to celebrate the athletes who deserve our admiration and respect for what they have accomplished thus far in their young lives. You have demonstrated through your actions that you are young men and women of character, and it is an honor to have the opportunity to stand before you this evening. Second, I'm excited to share this evening with the parents, the family members, the mentors, the coaches who have spent numerous hours at games, matches, meets, supporting the people in the audience. I know with certainty that without your encouragement and support, these young men and women would not be sitting here tonight. So athletes, if you will, please join me in a round of applause for people who have supported you. Finally, I'm really excited to be here tonight because I really enjoy the sound of my own voice. Now, I say that in jest. But on some level, it's a little bit true. Because I originally saw this as an opportunity to offer advice to the young people of today. I was going to make a list of my mistakes, tell you what I did wrong from the time I was 17 on, and then, and here's the worst part, I was going to advise you on how you could avoid the same mistakes. Essentially, my plan was a litany for how you ought to live your lives. Not a good idea. So what could I say here tonight that A, you might actually listen to, and B, might benefit from what I just said? I began thinking about some of the best advice I've received in my lifetime. And it occurred to me that I received a lot of good advice. The problem is I've rarely benefited from it. In fact, I would argue that we, as human beings, collectively, rarely benefit from advice on the whole. Yeah, sure, we might get a good stock tip or two and adhere to that. But when it comes to good advice, I found for myself that I often don't benefit from it because either I don't know if it's good or bad advice, or, and this is the more likely of the two scenarios, I wasn't wise enough at the time to realize the advice was good or how to act on it. Wisdom, after all, comes from experience. So in other words, I hadn't had enough experience to truly understand or benefit from the advice people have given me. That is why, athletes, your parents worry as much about you as they do. Even though a majority of the pieces of advice they give you are often good, you won't benefit from them immediately because you have yet to experience the things that will enable you to then interpret and act on them in the moment. I know this might sound a little bit confusing, but I promise my convoluted concept by the end will be a little bit more lucid. So here's the bottom line for tonight. My role is not to give you advice. In fact, if I do end up giving you advice throughout the course of this speech, you should feel free to disregard it immediately. Rather, I'd like to think of myself tonight as an interpreter. I plan on interpreting, as best I can, some of the advice I know you've already received, because I received the same advice when I was your age not too long ago. At least I like to think so. And will offer an explanation through my own experience of how that advice, both good and bad, has played out. So I'll be telling you 3 short stories. 1 from last Saturday, and 2 from my senior year of high school football. The first story occurred this past Saturday afternoon. And with the passing of Steve Jobs last night, the story I'm about to tell you is particularly relevant because it is one of his products, the iPhone, that facilitated the following. I was at the gym riding the stationary bike when my roommate and longtime friend, Brendan, came walking in. We did that thing that guys do where you don't say anything. We take the earphones out, we just looked at one another and gave each other the guy head nod. You know what I'm talking about. About 20 minutes later, I received a text from Brendan that read, "Dude, download the WEEI Boston radio app and listen to Kevin Millar's interview on demand from yesterday. So good. It should be noted that my close friend of nearly 10 years sent me a text from only 40 feet away. People in the audience who are a little bit older realize the relative absurdity of this. But I have to admit, I've done the exact same thing myself on many occasions. Either way, thanks to Steve Jobs, I was listening to Kevin Millar on the Boston radio app that I now possess on my iPhone in less than 37 seconds from the moment I actually received the text from Brendan. So I opened the app and started listening to Kevin Millar. And by the way, Kevin Millar, for those who don't know, is a retired big leaguer. He played for 12 seasons, played for the Boston Red Sox, and in the year they won the championship in 2004, he batted .297. So he speaks with authority. The topic of the interview was the Boston Red Sox collapse just this past month. They had a 9-game lead going into September and ended up not making the playoffs. The person interviewing Millar was asking him to diagnose the reason behind the collapse. He responded, and I quote, "It's the character. It's the character of the guys you sign. Sometimes you have this list of the top 5 free agents going into the offseason. Give me some character players. They don't have to be the biggest names. Erase all the salaries, erase all the stats. Give me some character players who want to attack the baseball that night." The interview went on for 20 minutes, but that was the crux of what he was saying. Character, more than anything else, was what he felt like helped them win in 2004, and conversely, why they lost this past month. So the first piece of advice I'd like to interpret goes something like this. When I was your age, and younger, my coaches and parents would always tell me that it was important for me to do the right thing on the field, and be a good sport, and make sure I retained my character when others weren't doing the same. Has anybody else ever gotten this advice before? Hands, so I know I'm not alone. Okay. To be totally honest, at that age, I didn't really see the value of behaving this way. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't like some jerk on the field. But I just didn't see the benefit, personally, from this type of following this advice. I remember thinking to myself, yeah, I'll be a better sport, I'll be a better teammate because you want me to, because I'll get more playing time. But I don't really see the value in it for me. And I had 2 what I thought were legit reasons. One, when I looked at the professional athletes as my examples, who were at the pinnacle of their respective sports, it seemed like, more often than not, they did not embody those traits. Yet they still made a lot of money and received a lot of attention. My second reason related to my own experience. I had yet to play on a team where having better character, being a better teammate, yielded better results, either for me or someone else. So in my mind, this advice was just one of those things that parents and coaches say. But it wasn't really right. Now, I probably wouldn't be standing here tonight if I didn't have some sort of metamorphosis across the years and realize that I've come to realize I was wrong. The great thing about Millar's interview is that his words fly directly in the face of my logic. Boston had 2 equally talented teams, and they both had their share of injuries from 2004 and 2011. But character, in Millar's eyes, was the deciding factor between success and failure on the field. Even at the pinnacle of baseball and other sports, a team can't win without character players, because they are the ones who reinforce the type of culture that any team needs to win. They reinforce the work ethic, the determination, the persistence, the patience that teams must embody to be championship teams. When I stop to think about this, the same lesson applies to my life and my job right now. Character even matters at work. I work on a team, and my performance is directly related to my team's success. By virtue of being a better teammate, by virtue of working with people who have a strong work ethic and support each other, we have been more successful than we would otherwise have been. And now when I'm hiring people, I'm not looking for the most talented person necessarily, but the person who combines character and talent. But the emphasis is on the character. Bottom line, through my own experience and the reminder of Kevin Millar's interview, the advice on character I used to get from my parents and coaches turned out to be right. It turned out to be right purely from a selfish perspective. There was actually something in it for me. better performance.